after his visit, Germany's foreign minister said America's short-sighted policies on climate change, weapons sales, and religious conflicts puts all of Europe at risk, so they can't depend on the U.S. anymore.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, how will this affect our relationships overseas? And do his supporters care? I don't care if his supporters care. I don't care. This is no longer, oh, he's doing his thing. This is endangering the world. And I think foreign leaders are not happy with him.
The only reason that anybody cares whether his supporters care is so that the Republican Party can finally come to their senses and put country above party and then say, okay, I might lose my job, but this is more important. That's not going to happen until his supporters also back up the Democrats.
The only reason that video is funny is we don't need to hear anything to see what's going on. And I think when you're dealing with foreign leaders and you speak different languages, your body language and everything you're saying in first impression is speaking volumes.
It's so uncomfortable to watch, isn't it, when you see him pulling people, and it's
the shove. The shove of that man.
How about the fact that
Montenegro?
But what about Macron could have hurt his tweeting hand?
Yeah, I mean, but I think
now what? He'd be completely mute without his tweeting hand.
It's clear that shove and the body language, as Sarah referred to, those are his power moves. He's trying to show dominance. He's written about it in his books. But what I found so disconcerting about that is that the French president, Macron, he compared Donald Trump to the Turkish president, compared him to Russia, and said that Donald Trump sees relationships in terms of a balance of power. While that doesn't bother the French president, he says, I don't believe in diplomacy by public abuse. But in my bilateral dialogues, I won't let anything pass. Well, and I thought, my goodness, you're getting that from France?
But the whole idea that he's in Russia's bed is what's going on right now. And the Russians are so happy to see this. He's already alienating NATO. He's alienating all our friends. He was really nice to the Saudis, who a lot of people feel were behind 9/11. I mean, what was that about? So he loves Russia and Saudi Arabia, and he really is nasty to the French and the Germans? Come on.
I mean, that's your perception. That's not everyone's perception.
No, it's not just my perception. I just watched it.
Well, I think if you look at Merkel, though, you have to have context for that. And she was speaking at a campaign event. And you all know that what people say at campaign stops, that looked like a campaign speech to me. And she didn't say anything that was so crazy, but she said something that sounded like a campaign speech. So I wasn't surprised to see her say that, And I don't think it was necessarily
the same thing, and so did the French president.
Everyone is kind of saying it.
Here's the thing, though, that I feel. I think if we're talking about his body language, then that's a win for him, because we're not talking about his content. We're not sitting here and beefing and saying, well, Donald Trump said this or Donald Trump's policies are destructive. We're talking about body language, and what people perceive that in large part is that the media is searching for something wrong with what he's doing because they're having a hard time finding it.
We're talking about his policies.
I promise you. I promise you that is
policy. We're talking about his policies.
I'm talking about the trip.
We're talking about his
climate change.
Hold on. Calm down, y'all. Calm down. Hold on now. Everybody just take a breath.
All right.
Because can't hear anything.
Can I say one thing on climate change?
Sure.
I just want to say one thing on climate change, because people in this country didn't elect Donald Trump to be a champion to fight climate change. That was not a policy issue that they believed in.
And he should leave it alone.
That's why he got elected.
If he wasn't elected to fix it, he should leave it alone.
Right. But I'm saying he may differ. He may wind up in a position where he differs with leaders of other countries on that, but leaders of other countries weren't elected by Americans, and he won here. Let's face it. You don't have to agree.
He didn't really
but he won the
here.
election.
He just won the Electoral College. 3 million people did not vote.
He won. That's called winning the election.
He did not win.
We are talking about his policies. We're talking about his reluctance to engage with NATO. We're talking about his sale of weapons to these countries. We're talking about climate change, because that is extremely important. So we are talking about his policies, but more importantly, the other governments, the other leaders think he's a clown, and they think we're a clown by association. They're talking about his policies also.
What I will do is that let me pull it closer to home. Chuck Schumer, I think yesterday or the day before, I happened to see it, was talking about the idea that they were basically saying, if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're going to take your funding, we're going to cut your funding for terrorist was it for Homeland Security?
Yeah.
Oh, the sanctuary cities?
If we don't do what we're being told, they're going to cut funding for Homeland Security for fighting terror.
Right.
And I would say that those are the kinds of things that you if you are the newly elected guy and all your stuff is here in New York, you probably don't want to threaten people in terms of cutting funding for stuff, because in fact we could be using all the money we're using to take care of him and his buildings and his fam. We might have to take that money back and leave y'all behind out there on your own. You know what I mean? Because it's like, look, this is a dire situation. Whatever he was elected to do, other countries are speaking about us in ways that they weren't before. See, before everybody said, you know, everybody is talking about laughing at it. They weren't laughing at us. They knew what was going on. They knew why people stopped speaking. They knew why the next president went out and did what he did. And they also see what's going on here, and they don't blame us, which is something
All I'm saying is that there's a segment of that this guy won, and a lot of things that he won and was elected to do are things that some of us may not like, and some people here may not like, and other countries may not like.
Listen,
but that, in many ways, he is fulfilling a campaign promise.
You cannot poop on what has been fought for, worked out, worked on. People. This is why we have diplomacy, and this is a man who doesn't have any diplomatic brain. So he doesn't have an understanding that all of these things, whether people like them or not, they were worked out. And when he says, you know, I didn't know this would be so hard. Well, this is why it's so hard, because people work their behinds off for years on both sides of the aisle to come to terms with how to work with each other. And he's pooped all over it.
I'm not defending the policy. I'm just defending the idea that elections have consequences. And this happens sometimes.
I get it. I know. And this is the hell to pay.